that falls in rain and collects in snowfall, but we don't capture it, we don't store it, we don't get it to where it's needed. And because of these biological assessments, we are actually sending it out into the ocean in order to put more water into the delta to protect the delta smelt, which is now this very famous little fish that has been used as a clean in our water to our farms. Well, I'm going to put people and agriculture and farmers and food before fish. Actually, there's a lot we can do even within the current water infrastructure. I don't want to say overnight, but kind of, actually. You just increase the flow. I remember a couple of years ago, the president, he was talking about, laughed at him and said, he doesn't have to try. There are 2 pumping stations right in the Bay Area. I actually went to see them, and I took a video, and I called the and actually, the president has increased deliveries of water. When I'm governor, and actually, the president has increased deliveries of water. When I'm governor, we don't just do what we can for today. Do what we can for today. We build for tomorrow, and we're a state where we used to do that. We're going to do that again, and so we're going to build new infrastructure. We are going to do things like barely even started. That was supposed to have been built decades ago. I was up there in Colusa County. I stood there where I should have been 100 feet underwater. We're going to build the Sykes Reservoir. We're going to build a canal. There's a canal system, the Folsom South Canal, where actually you can suddenly start bringing, if you finish that just another 20 miles or so, you can bring water from the American River and the Tuolumne. You can bring water from the American River and the Tuolumne River into the same system that supplies the Central Valley. And then you can increase again without building much new infrastructure. There's so many things. You just need a bit of, we can talk infrastructure. There's so many things. You just need a bit of, we can talk about raising shelter. We can have abundant water and energy. That's my plan. We can have abundant water and energy. That's my plan.
This is a controversial question, but very important. Make America for our kids. How you're feeling about lifting the mandate for kids in school to protect them, because California is the nation right now. I just left the Capitol. I advocate for children. I have a vaccine-injured child myself who is protected under an IEP. But there are some bills coming up. AB 2651, where it's giving CDPH an overreach for our children and going after parents. So I'd like to know kind of how you're feeling on bringing back the religious and philosophical exceptions in California for our kids.
It's outrageous. I thought it was outrageous because as a parent, you have to be a parent to feel like this. As a parent, how dare you tell me to do these things that I know are risky or bad for my child? I just know their kids best. So I'm totally against that. Totally against that. In fact, we're working on a health freedom manifesto because I believe in that 100%, and I believe in the MAHA agenda. You talk about MAHA. I wrote a book in 2015 called More Human, designing a world where people come first. And the whole argument was against big, bureaucratic, centralized systems on healthcare and food and all these things. And if you look at the food chapter of that book, More Human, that I wrote now 11 years ago, and the health chapter, you put those two together, that is basically the MAHA agenda when it comes to all of that. In terms of vaccines, I completely agree. The only thing I would say is that I never want to promise something I can't deliver. And I want to make sure that with each of these things, where it's in legislation, that I can't unilaterally just delete laws that I don't like, even though I dislike them. So some of them, and this is what we need to take a look at, some of them are being done through administration. Some of the changes we can make that way. But where is legislation, we have to overturn that. And so we've got to be honest about that. Now, one of the ways that the governor can overturn legislation is if it violates the state constitution. And there are things I've already spent time on in detail looking into that. So one of them is the issue of biological boys and girls sports. So that goes back to a bill that I know it's not exactly what you asked about, but as an example, that was passed, it was AB 1266, passed in 2013. And we think, my legal team and I, that we've got grounds to overturn that because it violates the state constitution in two areas. Safety at school and gender discrimination. So what I would say to you is I want to look at every single, this is what's going to be in the Health Freedom Manifesto. We're going to look at every single thing that is taking away power from parents and look at whether it is legislation that's being passed, what are the constitutional grounds for trying to overturn it, or whether it's stuff that we can do through changing the enforcement regime. We're going to be very precise about it because I don't want to make a promise I can't deliver, but the promise I can make to you now is that I will do everything in my power as governor to restore parents' rights over this and all the other important issues.
To help families bring the decision of medical exemptions back into the hands of physician-parent conversation and family. So that's one way, SB 1377, Senator Ryan Jones is bringing that forward very bravely as a Republican, where it's a super minority, but we can help start peeling that back and repealing SB 276 that was done in 2019 by Senator Ryan. So thank you.
This is what goes on, by the way. What you've just done there is a brilliant example, in a way, of everything that's wrong in California. There's so much of this. There's so much legislation and regulation. We're drowning in this stuff. Year after year, they pass these bills, and no one can follow it. They've got these different numbers, and I've lost track of all the different bills. Do you know how many bills they passed in the last session?
702.
No. You're undercounting.
There was 900 up, it was like 700.
1,118 bills in the last session, not the last few years, just one session. I mean, we printed them all out, and I did an event outside the Capitol. I know I'm not very tall. It was twice my height. It's insane. So one thing that we've got to do in this state is just stop telling people what to do the whole time. Learning the names and all the details of all these bills because we won't be passing so many in the first place. Thank you very much.
I have two questions for you. One question is, what are you going to do about the PUC? And then the second question is, how are you going to work with all these dysfunctional legislators?
So the first two questions. What are you going to do about the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission? And secondly, what are you going to do with all these dysfunctional legislators? Well, first of all, it actually relates to the second question relates a little bit to what I was saying earlier. What I'd really love to do to these legislators is say, you know what, just take a couple of years off, right? Just stop, just leave us alone. Just don't pass anything. That's not going to happen. The serious answer to both questions is this. First of all, on the PUC, we're looking at it right now, actually. We're about to publish a report. So I mentioned earlier CalDOGE, California Department of Government Efficiency. Volunteers right now are doing the work that will help me be effective once I take office. The first part I've touched on, which is these fraud reports. So we've published now 4 fraud reports at CalDOGE. 3 of them individual investigations of specific examples of fraud. And then the 4th one was a summary of the total so far. But there's a whole other aspect of CalDOGE, the other strand of its work, which we haven't yet published anything. We're working on our first report. This is on the real government efficiency part, if you will. The structure of the government, the bureaucracy, all these endless agencies like the Public Utilities Commission, and so on, that actually are really driving a lot of the nightmare that all businesses and families experience. So we're looking at ways to shut down, cut back, get rid of the duplication, redirect the work of all these agencies. The first of these, I'm going to call these the bloat reports. Finding the bloat in our mind. The first one is going to be on energy. We're doing that right now. Because you've got the Energy Commission, the Public Utilities Commission, CARB, the California Air Resources Board, you've got regional air quality agencies. You've got so much regulation and nonsense in the area of energy and climate. Way more than any other state. We already started to look at the numbers of people, the number of bureaucrats, the cost of it all. It's ridiculous. So the real point of the Public Utilities Commission is that we're going to look at simplifying all of that whole map of how energy is regulated in California and so on. And our bloat report will be laying that out in a few weeks. But secondly, I touched on it earlier, we've got to redirect the focus for our energy policy away from this obsession with wind and solar. For electricity, the Public Utilities Commission, we should have a mandate, and I'll give it this mandate, of guaranteeing affordable, reliable energy in California that is as green as possible. Right now, they're pushing climate goals above all else, and they don't care how much it costs. And that's why electric bills have more than doubled in the last 10 years, and why they're more than double the national average. So we're going to completely change the focus. We're going to simplify the structure and reduce the bureaucracy and change the focus to affordable, reliable energy. That's what the PUC will be doing. So that's the answer to that one. So what's the other question? The legislature, yeah, the dysfunctional legislature. So here's the thing. We've got a 2/3 majority of Democratic-controlled legislature. It's been 16 years of one-party rule in California. 16 years where they control absolutely everything. 2/3 majority in the legislature, all the statewide offices, all the big cities and the counties, the Supreme Court in California, 6-1 Democrat majority appointed by Democrat governors. And so it's been one party rule. And that's going to change when I go. And it's going to reshape up the dynamic in Sacramento, truly. They don't expect it now. They're so arrogant. They think they own it. They're going to run things forever. And when people say, well, how are you going to work with the legislature? Here's how I see it. First of all, it's not a legitimate supermajority. They've never had 2/3 of the vote. Never. This is achieved through gerrymandering. That's why they've got a 2/3 majority. So that's the first one. I'm not in awe of it, like this is the will of the people. It's not. Gerrymandering. That's the first one. Secondly, when I'm elected governor, even if this, first of all, I'm going to try and work to break the supermajority this cycle, to work hard as the top of the ticket candidate to help elect Republicans at every level of government, including in our state Senate and Assembly, so that we try and break the supermajority this year. But let's say for the purpose of your question, it's still a supermajority. Here's how I see it. I will have just been elected by the people to deliver this plan. And that will be in my first budget, as I said. And I'm going to say to the legislature, especially after all their lectures for all these years about democracy, how they're against people trying to overturn elections, I'm going to say to them, are you really going to try and overturn the result of the governor's election? The people voted for this. You better work with me to implement it. That'll be my expectation. That'll be my expectation. And I'm telling you now, hard as it is to imagine, I have experience of working across the aisle. I worked as the senior advisor to the Prime Minister in the UK, it's a coalition government. To the Conservative Prime Minister, but there's another party in the government. I worked there, working to make things happen. I've got experience of actually crafting policy, making things work, even across the party lines. I know how to do that, and I'm confident I can get that done. We won't get everything. We have a constitution. That's how it works. We can't just ignore it. We can't just pretend it's not there. We can work through the system to elect more Republicans over the years. It's a huge part of how I see my role as once I'm governor, leading the party in our state. We're going to move towards the majority of Republicans in the legislature. But in the meantime, you've got to have an attitude of constructive engagement and reminding them of their responsibility to honour the will of the people who, when they elected me governor, voted for change. Thank you.
Here's question I had, you already touched on a little bit, is for desalinization.
Yeah, just getting my water. I'm not walking away.
Well, I don't want to burn a bunch of time out of getting water, so here we go. Oh, desalinization. You already kind of mentioned it, but I thought I'd follow through something.
So you mean you want...
Well, I'm for it. I know it's expensive.
Well, desalination is a good idea, and it's used incredibly effectively in many places. Australia, Israel as well. It's got great technology. There was a proposal for a desalination plant in Orange County that made a lot of sense. That was blocked by one of these agencies, the Coastal Commission. So one answer is we're going to get rid of the bureaucrats on the Coastal Commission that block desalination. That's one thing we can do. Sorry? It's a brilliant point. Exactly, so they're fine. This is such a great point. I'm so happy you mentioned that. So, for those who didn't hear, our friend over here, lady, said, well, look at these Coastal Commission people. They block desalination, but they're fine with these disgusting, ugly windmills. And actually, the windmills are not just these ridiculous floating windmills 20 miles offshore. And actually, so there's two locations. There's Morro Bay, the central coast, and Humboldt up north. I've been to both. And some of them are actually not that far offshore. But with both of them, what they involve is a massive industrialization of the coastline. Because to make this whole ridiculous windmill scheme work, you're going to have battery plants and transmission lines and all this stuff on our beautiful central coast and in Humboldt. And as you say, the Coastal Commission, fine with that.
And then they don't want to compensate.
Exactly. But it's a classic example with this energy policy, this climate policy. It's ideology over common sense and practicality. And that's what's going to change when I'm governor. We're going to end this religion on climate, but it's driving out common sense, making everything so expensive, and these ridiculous kind of things that are happening, for example, with the gas prices and electric bills, that's all going to change. And on desalination, I've got where's my friend with a question? On desalination, we are going to, I'm totally open to it, and we're going to make it feasible, because we're going to actually remove the bureaucratic barriers that are standing in the way of stuff that makes sense and happens in other countries. And it's an example of California should be leading on all of these things. We should be the ones generating the new ideas and inventing the next generation of desalination. The other thing they say about desalination is that it uses a lot of energy. Well, yeah, so why don't we think smart and have small modular nuclear power reactors next to the desalination? Possibilities for our state with a bit of common sense.
Yeah, hold on. Okay. So, California, what they're trying to do is they're trying to add this 5% billionaire tax, which we know it's not going to work for billionaires because they're leaving. In and out is left, Oracle's leaving, Tesla's leaving. They're going to trickle it down to the regular people. How are you, and then whatever they want to do, whenever they want to add a tax or get it wrong, they want to say, oh, let's do it as a billionaire tax. So everyone runs out there, put it on the ballot, and pass it, and then it gets screwed down. So how are you going to stop that, get information out there that, hey, we don't want this 5% billionaire tax when it's going to come to the people? I mean, if you own a house, you have investments, you're going to take all your additions, and say it adds up to $1 million. 5% is $50,000. You got to write a check to you. So how are we going to stop that?
Exactly right. Basically, an asset seizure. That's really what it is. And the government is taking your assets. It's completely un-American. It's outrageous. And I don't think it's going to happen, by the way, because they've got to get the signatures, they've got to get it on the ballot, then they've got to pass it.
Washington, D.C. signed it, and it's property.
Well,
and it's going to face legal action. Like, states like Washington get it passed, you know,
I
California.
understand. Well, it's so well known because you're going to have a government. That's why you're going to let the government. It's got to be. This year, I'm not governor now. I won't be governor. I don't take office till next January. This is proposed vote for the ballot this year, this November. So we have to get together and beat it this year. Okay? There's another very, so I have to be honest, I've got a lot of, I've been speaking to a lot of big organisations, a lot of people in the business community who are finally getting off the sidelines. One of the things that's been really bad in the last few years is that we've had, as the state has drifted further and further to the left, you've had the business community has been incredibly damaged by this. I'm a small business owner, that's what it says on my ballot designation. Right, small business, how hard have they made it?
I just got a bill for $800. My wife just paid, they don't even know what it is. The state just said, hey, you're doing business in California.
So he's talking about the
Right here, I just got a bill for $800.
this is very important. That's your bill. What does it say there? And California's $800 small business tax. And that's my plan to do that. Don't forget here, it's outrageous. Every business in California, even if you don't make any money, has to pay $800 to the government for existing. Not when I'm governor, that's going to be gone. I'll have to repeat the question you just got. So, what are you going to do about the prisons? I don't want to do this trick every single time because it's going to get boring. But if you went to SteveHilton.government.com, you would find that last summer I announced my plan to stop the prison closure program, increase prison capacity in California, more prisons, less crime. It's very simple. People who committed serious and violent crimes need to be behind bars, not just as punishment, but also so we can be properly rehabilitated. Exactly as you said, this it's another example of how they're spending our money on these ideological obsessions that don't do anything for the people. That is all going to change when I'm gone. Thank you very much. About the microphone situation. So the question was about the fires and the Palisades. What are you going to do to make sure that we don't have that kind of thing again? I want to be really clear about this. And again, I spent a lot of time with the Palisades, and I've been all over this issue. disaster was not a natural disaster. It was a man-made disaster. Let's be clear, a Democrat-made disaster. Every single thing that led to that disaster, we can and I will reverse. Because these are policy choices made by the Democrats. Number one, the fire risk is something we can manage if we have proper management of our forests and the grass and the cattle. You don't do that anyway. This goes back to these agencies and bureaucracies. There's a state agency called the Santa Monica Mountain Conservancy, which owns that land right there. They were actually fining people who were clearing the brush around their homes. There are actual residents doing the responsible thing, the sensible thing. They know how it works, and the government was fighting you. The reason that fire started was because it was the reignition of the Lockman fire a week before. And the fire department asked to go in there. It's all now come out in public. And they were asked why they sent bulldozers in to properly extinguish that fire. They said, well, are you kidding? I can't do that. I'll be held up for putting an endangered plant at risk. This thing with the milk veg, and then the fire reignite, that's what started Palisades. So the whole thing should, they go on about the wind, climate change. What are we talking about? We have these winds every year. Yes, it's particularly strong, not unprecedented. So we've got to have proper forest management. We've got to end this environmental extremism. It goes back to the earlier question about water. We have an empty reservoir and empty fire hydrants. What are you talking about? This is total incompetence, and it's a combination actually of incompetence and ideology. It's not just incompetence. We mustn't let them get away with it. It's worse than that. Some of this is on purpose. And so we're going to change all of that. We're going to manage our forests and we're going to get water where it's needed. But on top of that, we can do smart things with fire prevention. There's businesses that are doing really smart things where you can harden your homes, you can create defensible space, we can connect that to insurance policies, so there's an incentive for people to protect their homes, you can have treatments and coatings. A lot of these fires really start with the embers flying and going into the roofs and start in the eaves of houses, and that's how they start. So if you protect your roof, that's a great way to say, all these sensible things we could be doing, but they're not, because they're just not interested. This is what you get after 16 years of one-party rule. They're totally arrogant, totally detached from real life, out of touch with what needs to happen. They don't care about any of this stuff. I do, and we're going to have really practical things to manage wildfire risk in this state. Insurance companies. So the question, what are you going to do to bring back insurance companies? That's the right question. Insurance is another thing where we're just paying so much in this state that it's crippling people. And the answer is again, it's the bureaucracy and the regulation that has driven insurance companies out. It started a long time ago. Not even the current insurance commissioners, the one before. A guy called Dave Jones, I believe his name was. And so this is what they did. They basically kept rates artificially low. They prevented insurance companies from pricing future risk into their rate setting. They stopped them doing this thing of charging for or incorporating costs of what they call reinsurance, where you can make business sense with that. All of this was blocked by the bureaucrats. So it didn't make sense for the insurance companies from a business point of view to be in the state. They leave the state, less competition, prices go up. That's how it works in the market. So we've got to get the industry back. Some of those changes actually finally have been made. There's a couple more that we need to do. I published my plan on fixing our insurance prices a couple of weeks ago. Number one, we have to get people off the fair plan or the unfair plan. That was supposed to be for people with really, really extreme cases of hard to insure risk as a real backstop. The idea was that originally there'd be about 100,000 people on it. Now we're heading towards 1 million people on it. It's totally out, it's really dangerous. If there's a problem that affects people on the fair plan, we've got a massive crisis on our hands in California. And so we've got to actively get people into proper insurance and off this fair plan. Secondly, we've the bureaucracy around insurance is just ridiculous. When Prop 103 was passed all those years ago, there's supposed to be a time limit of 60 days for approval of rate changes. 60 days. Sometimes now it takes a year. They just completely ignore it. That's something we've got to get back to a proper, well-regulated market. Then the players will come back in. And then the third one, which is a really important point no one talks about, is litigation. You've got a ton of nuisance lawsuits, a lot of them filed by out-of-state private equity firms on all of this insurance and claims that are just extorting money in a very malicious way. They're making the money and leaving the state. We've got to clamp down on these nuisance lawsuits on insurance as well. Okay.
I'm going to talk a little louder. And I'll be the first to donate to your PA system. Steve, I want to thank you for coming out here, spreading your conservative values to these wonderful conservatives out here. And state of California. Thank you for coming out here and talking to us. I want to know, do you support Carl DeMaio's Stop the Savings Tax? Have you seen that? No, I got another couple things. Okay. So, Carl DeMaio, thank God for Carl DeMaio. I don't think we'd be here today with Steve Hilton in the lead, in the polls, without Carl DeMaio getting people to the polls so that we can have these ballot initiatives on these polls. Because our biggest problem is turnout. This state is very conservative. We've got the majority of Republican counties in this state. We're just controlled by the, I'll call it plantations, Democrat plantations in San Francisco and LA. So, okay. So, I just got a couple things to say. We've got a week to get this ballot initiative on the ballot for this coming election. Okay, a week. We need 1 million signatures. And this is to stop the savings tax. They're going to tax all your savings, your retirement, your pension, money you've already paid taxes on, and now they want to tax it again. And so, I would like you to. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry, she's got a lot of line of people. Thank you very much. I totally agree with you. Carl is a very good friend of mine. We talk all the time. And I was out with him getting signatures for Prop 50, for voter ID and fighting Prop 50. And here's the thing that you said that's absolutely right. This is a really big part of why we're going to win this year, because thanks to Carl DeMaio, thanks to so many of you who I know got involved as well, we are going to have on the ballot this November voter ID in California. And as you have just shown, voter ID is very popular, especially among Republicans, and that means we're going to get a big turnout. And here's the simple fact. That shows why we can win in California, exactly as our friend said. This is a much more Republican state than people think. When they want you to think, and people want change in this state so badly, here's the numbers. If everybody who voted for President Trump in California in 2024 votes for me as governor in 2026, I'll be elected governor with 200,000 votes to spare. And there's a second ballot initiative that Carl DeMaio also helped to get over the line. It was started by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Save Prop 13. And I'm proud to say I'm not just endorsed by President Trump, I'm also endorsed by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. question, are you against the savings? Yes, I'm against the savings tax. I'm against the savings tax. I'm against the mileage tax, which they put in. None of that. I'm going to stop all of that. Veto, veto, veto. And I'm going to do it.
Question is, the Latino community is very important here in California. What are you going to do about bringing providing easier path for citizenship and or visa?
The question was on, the question was on, I only got time for two, if that's all. Can I just do this one?
The other one was, can I get a picture?
Okay, actually, that's a very good point. I should make a housekeeping announcement. The second question is, will I get a picture? I'm going to do the Oprah thing now. You get a picture, you get a picture, you get a picture. Everybody. What the plan usually with these things is we go about an hour and a half of questions and whatever, and then we'll absolutely stop. Everyone who wants a picture will get a picture. We'll do it afterwards at the end. I'm not rushing off. I promise you we'll be able to do that. So, let me get to your question on immigration. You said you put two things together there. You said the Latino community is very important, and then you went to what are you going to do for pathway to citizenship? I'd like to actually separate those two things as well. Yes, the Latino community is very important. It's 40% of the population now of California, the largest group in California. And I take that very seriously. I know exactly what it means to be an immigrant. My parents, I'm not just an immigrant here, a legal immigrant in California. We still have legal immigrants in this country. But my parents fled communism in Hungary. They are Hungarian immigrants. I grew up in a working class immigrant household. I know exactly what that's like. To work hard and follow your dreams and try and create opportunity in a new country. I really understand that. And I very much am here saying that I am the candidate, in this race for governor, I am the candidate of the legal immigrant community for the legal immigrant community. But it's for the legal immigrant community. Okay? And so all the things I'm talking about actually, helping small business and cutting gas prices, all these things, helping you own your own home. I want the Latino community and other immigrant communities to have a shot at the California dream. That's how I think we're going to get a big vote there. When it comes to immigration, the first point to make is that there is a federal policy. It's not the government of California, that is federal policy. But I just want to say something very clearly so you know where I'm coming from. I hear people say, let's have a pathway to citizenship for people who came here illegally. And my response to that is, we already have a pathway to citizenship. It's called legal immigration. And I just
Thank you for being here, Mr. Steve Hilton. Thank you. My question is about regulation. Regulation in California is killing manufacturing. I'm a manufacturer. I worked for a manufacturing company for 40 years, and we actually manufacture a product that has cleaned over 2.6 billion cubic feet of air every year across the country, including California and Orange County. But Sacramento County still comes to my factory and bills me for dropping sand 6 feet from the air down to the ground. They charge me for the time the sand drops to the ground. That's what Sacramento County does to me. They bill me. And they come out and they see what we're doing, they know that we're successful, and they know we're earning money, and then just the price just goes higher and higher and higher. So my question to you is, what do you do about the ridiculous Sacramento County regulation?
This is why I'm so excited. When I talk here about this ridiculous bloated, nanny-state bureaucracy, and the point you make is a really important one. It's not just the state government, it's the counties as well. I mean, I think the story the whole time. So a lady who works at, she has a pest control business, and she's got to report all the time, what chemicals, all these things, fine, we get it, chemicals, you want to be careful. She has to report different ways to the state board of pesticide regulation and the agriculture department, and then each county she operates in, that's 9 counties, and each one is slightly different. You have different forms, and sometimes it's a website, and they will ask the information in a different way. And I said, what a nightmare, you've got to do that every year, no, every month. Just insane, shut up. So the burden of this regulation is crushed. And so the answer is, at the state level, we're going to have a process of what's called reverse sunsetting. The state that has done this best is Idaho, where they basically took the entire regulatory code and they said this will all expire in 5 years unless we proactively reinstate it. That's what I'd like to see happen in California. At the state level, going through the state code of regulations. At the county level, I don't control that as well. But what you do control is a lot of funding that goes to the county. So that's the leverage that you have as government. And so what I want to do is, so I don't want to be totally like running the counties instead of the counties. That's not what I believe. I believe power should be decentralized. But when you've got California businesses being crushed like this, that is exactly what we need to do at the county level. I just won't be able to do it directly. I will make sure that we use every leverage we have in terms of the funding to the states, to the counties from the state. And what I need to know from you and all your colleagues in business and small business, what are the ones that are doing the most damage? What do we need to focus on? Because it's usually this kind of 80-20 rule. You know, the nice things in business is often like that. But, you know, it's a small proportion of the regulation is doing the most damage. So let's focus on that. So that's my attitude to it. We'll work through the counties using the leverage of state money to try and remove this crushing burden, which I feel so deeply as a small business owner myself.
So the burden is on the company, but what happens is that the company is actually creating air for the country. There's no given back.
No, I understand. I mean, and it doesn't make any sense because there's no. Most of the time, they're not even any benefit from these things.
Right.
It doesn't even. It's all some bureaucrat deciding these things without any clue about what happens in the real world. So that's what we need to do. Listen, I just want to tell you that when I'm there, all we've got so used to, I think. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm up here as well. We've got so used to a situation in this state where we're living with these people who just have no idea what the real world is all about.
Right.
They've never run a business, and they've never created a job. They sit there in their bureaucratic offices, and they just churn all this crap out. Day after day after day. They don't think anything of it, because they don't have any other experience. Imagine the difference it's going to be when you have a business guy with a business mindset there in the governor's office. You hate this stuff. Exactly. I think you've seen how it works at the federal level, right?
Chairwoman of the United American Republican Council, I just want to first of all, congratulations on your endorsement. What are your plans to help President Trump and Secretary Rubio to get rid of the 4,000 plus relatives of the Islamic Republic's regime, who 50% of them live in California and Texas? Legally, are going to bear with yourself.
So the question was about Iran, and by the way, I had a wonderful time in San Jose. It's Los Gatos, actually, Nowruz party on Sunday. That was wonderful. I won't do the whole thing I said there, but I'll just say very quickly. Who knows what's going to happen in Iran? We haven't seen there's an agreement tonight that was encouraging the president announcing that he wouldn't be going through with the threat of strikes in 2 weeks to get a ceasefire for 2 weeks. We'll see. As I said on Sunday, I don't know whether it's not within my power to bring about regime change in Iran, much as I would love it, but I definitely can help bring about regime change right here in California. It's a very good point. And we just saw the Rubio kicking out this, what's his name, Soleimani's graduate. So And so I love the question, and it's a really great point. We have a fantastic Iranian community, Persian community here in California. I've spent a lot of time with them. I'm with you 100%. In LA, especially a big community there, lovely. And we've got a great event with them coming up in the next couple of weeks. But that's a really good point. There's some bad ones here as well. The regime renegades. There's something really disgusting actually about people who just sit there while in Iran, their own people, people, their relatives or whatever the regime, are terrorizing women and forcing them to cover up the whole time and denying them all this, and then they're gallivanting around LA enjoying the benefits of a free society. There's something really sick about that, and we're going to kick these people out, and I'm going to be part of that. Very, very.
Before our elections as defined in our Constitution, and electronic machines are included. What will you do to correct this constitutional violation and restore confidence in our elections?
I think we've got 2 more questions. I'm really sorry, we're not going to have time for everyone. I just don't want people to be waiting in vain, because otherwise we won't have time for the pictures. So I agree with you very much. I hate the way that they've messed around with our elections endlessly, especially using the pandemic as a pretext. I've got a very simple attitude to this. I don't see why we can't do it the way that most other places do it. Vote on one day, count on one day, get the results on one day, paper ballots, go to the voter ID, citizens only. What's wrong with that? The question as to how I can do it, though, again, I want to be honest about it. You've got the Secretary of State, you've got to elect a Republican Secretary of State to lead this work, and you've got the county registrars of voters. There's a whole bunch of stuff we need to fix. For example, they've created these vote centres. They've centralised the voting so that it makes it much more expensive to try and get a recount. There's all this stuff that we need to unravel. And I promise you, I am on it. We are going to do the work necessary to restore faith in our elections in California.
I'm wondering what steps you would take to help with the drug addiction and eventually the streets.
Thank you. So this is a question about mental health and drug addiction and homelessness, and it's a very, very serious issue, and I've done a lot of work on it. You can read the long version of this on my policy website, goldentogether.com. There's a plan there for ending homelessness, and here's what we're going to do. When you get to addiction, it's very, we used to have drug courts in this state, and it was very clear. Rehab and jail. And that's what we need to get back to. It cannot be a choice to live in those conditions. I mean, if people we love were living like that, we wouldn't just accept it and let that happen. We've got to make treatment for addiction for people who are living on the streets mandatory. There was a bill just passed in the legislature with the Sober Housing Act, where they were taking 10% of the money that was allocated for homelessness and put it into shelter, where you have to, as a condition of shelter, you had to go into treatment, rehab. The legislature, the Democrat legislature passed it. Well, guess what? Gavin Newsom vetoed it. Shame on him. It shouldn't just be 10%, it should be 100% on making sure that people who get those services in exchange, you have to accept rehab and addiction and recovery treatment. Get your life back on track. On mental health, there's a longer answer I can give, I'll just give you a very simple point. It's ridiculous that we've closed down all these mental health hospitals and institutions let's treat it in the community. No, we're not treating it. We know where we're actually treating it. On the streets or in jail. That is barbaric. We're going to have proper funding for proper mental health institutions, and we're going to do it very quickly. Thank you.
My husband is a correctional officer, and he was telling me that there's a 30 program that they're doing that's like 30 is like 3% for correctional officers that use a level 3, 4 for force guards, and all of the officers that make
So the question was about the program in the corrections department, where correctional officers, because apparently they are now insisting on what's called a 30-30 program by 30, is it? Where 30% of the workers need to be women. In a very dangerous sense. It's exactly the kind of nonsense we have to get rid of. I'm sick of all this ridiculous DEI and politically correct nonsense. We just need to focus on practical things that get results. It's a really good example of the absolute revolution that's going to happen when you elect me governor. All of this nonsense is going to get the climate extremism, the race and gender extremism, all this ideological nonsense that is just getting in the way of common sense, practical things to make our lives better and to serve the public is going to be swept out of our government. We are going to clean house and we're going to focus on common sense, and that's a really good example. Thank you very much. All right. I'm so sorry. That's all we got time for. You can do the questions while you take a picture. You're going to come up, you're going to line up over there. Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for coming out. I really, really